Hello and welcome to Fantasy Top 5.
Hey.
We have some music going.
We're sort of having some minor technical difficulties because my mouse is still dying.
Man, that's a broken mouse.
Okay, go, you guys. You're
Here
on.
we are.
Woo!
We're doing a little bit of celebrating here at Fantasy Top 5.
Yeah, we are. Sean's doing a touchdown dance. I just
Jacoby Jones style.
threw him the touchdown. So I was griffining over here because we did our first actual podcast last week, and we both listened to it, and needless to say, we killed it.
Yeah,
And
we
here we are with
definitely
our
came out ahead in that one.
We did. And so we're doing our celebration now because we can't really do it during the show. I guess we could. We could celebrate all show. Every time we say something funny, I'll just start celebrating. You can get up and start dancing.
All right.
We'll just start. Yeah, every time we just do something awesome, just so people enjoy it more.
Sounds good to me.
Every time we pull off some big play, some big joke, some
One-
big.
Big scoring drive.
Yep.
Once we get into the 2-minute drill and just take it downfield and put it in there.
No huddle.
Yeah, no huddle offense.
No huddle offense. We'll do some celebrating. People will like it.
I mean, we'll Cam Newton.
Oh, you can do that. Yeah, we got to come up with some. Maybe we should wait and do it next episode so we can come up with some awesome celebrations because I don't know if we really have any right now. I just stole the Griffin, and then you stole the awesome Jacoby Jones. I don't even know what it was. Juggling?
Yeah, I think he was juggling, even though I didn't feel like it was that hard of a catch. And I feel like he was saying that he is a juggler because he
Oh,
caught
yeah,
it.
'cause he
But it seemed
pulled
like
it
he
in.
grabbed it, secured it. There was absolutely no juggling involved. But he
Still, the
scored a
best
touchdown.
part was
so
this at the end.
yeah, he just cranks
So
it.
good. If anyone can find it.
I personally liked Antonio Brown's celebration after he took that hit and just stomped down the field. He just freaks out, this little dude flexing.
I thought he was just going to keep going. He just kept walking, and it was like, are you coming back?
But I respect
Are you,
it.
are
I
you
love
playing
Antonio
football?
Brown. Yeah, I
I
love
did
that
too.
dude.
It was so yeah. Sunday was really good. There was a lot of good games. Maybe
lot
we
of
should go back to
crazy games.
Thursday. Maybe we should go back to Thursday first because that one was really crazy.
Yeah, that one was. Oh, that one was. Yeah, it was.
Poor. We were so high on
Yeah.
Cutler and so high on Marshall, and
And truthfully, none of that's changed a whole lot for me.
I agree. Yeah, a lot of people.
The
We actually
Packers
got a
have
lot
their
of
number most of the time.
we got a lot of questions this week about Cutler, and I feel like we all just kind of felt bad for you guys, and then, but we're still pretty high on him. I think the Packers did really good, and that offensive line does scare me though. When you get sacked that many times, it's really hard to play football.
Yeah, the way I look at it is they'll always have that offensive line, but not every team is going to have Clay Matthews. So I think
That was
Cutler will be
crazy.
fine. And I think also if Brandon Marshall, I'm still high on you, but when a ball's in your hands, go ahead and bring that in. That's a touchdown. Like you got to do that. You got to help Cutler out a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know why he didn't want to catch those.
Yeah, because
There must have been a reason, right? Like
Yeah.
maybe he had some ulterior motive. Like
yeah,
it just didn't seem fun at the time.
yeah, something like that. Like I don't know, but
Maybe the ball was. Maybe he didn't like the way it felt when he touched it. So
Yeah.
he got rid of it.
Well, that's my thing, too, is I feel like everyone was super hard on Cutler about that whole game. And I watch it, and I'm like, everyone's like, he holds the ball too long, this and this. He's got a bad attitude. It's like, I'd have a bad attitude, too, if I had 2 seconds to throw the ball every time. He hikes the ball,
was
and Clay Matthews
constantly-
was back there. And there was a couple of the times that he ran away, got away from guys, and then found open people, and they would drop the ball. Like I don't put it on Cutler. I put it on Cutler less than a lot of people. Mainly, I put it on the offensive line. Secondary, I put it on Marshall, and then also I put it on the Bears defense. They dropped. I can't remember which linebacker it was, but Aaron Rodgers threw him the ball, and he didn't catch it. Like you have to make those plays if you want to win games. And that's the thing is the Bears lost, and they had no offense. Matt Forte went out in the beginning, and everyone's acting like it was this big statement by Green Bay. Like, I feel bad. I liked the way Green Bay's defense looked, but their offense looked like shit, basically. Like, it looked awful. They won because they did a crazy fake field goal that went for a touchdown when it was fourth and
crazy.
26 or something. And then, like I said, Aaron Rodgers, I don't know what's going on with the top quarterbacks this year because Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, there's a lot of different quarterbacks that aren't doing anything, but mainly Aaron Rodgers doesn't make mistakes, and he's making mistakes. So not to only talk about the Bears and Green Bay game, but I'm pissed about it. I love Cutler, and everyone's everyone's all about how bad Cutler is.
Everyone
now.
feels all awkward. They're like, "Oh man!"
Like, dude, that guy's fired up. I'm out. I'm leaving.
Yeah, we want a fun podcast here. We didn't want to be all
sorry.
serious.
All right, it's fun from here on out.
All right, fun times. So yeah, and there were a lot of good games yesterday as well.
A lot of surprising games. I'll say again, like a lot of surprising games.
The Rams pulled out a win and looked really good. We'll actually talk about them a lot, which is kind of exciting. And yeah, should we just get started?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so we'll start out with the top 5 news, which is what we always do here at Fantasy Top 5. Well, actually, let's talk about what we're doing. We're a podcast.
Oh yeah. We're a
we should probably tell
podcast,
people
and
who we are.
Well, yeah, I forgot. It's been a few weeks. I don't know. You kind of just, I guess, think people know, but yeah, we're Fantasy Top 5. I'm Sean. This
I'm
is
Eric. We have Lane back there producing the podcast, and yeah, we do a live show which we're doing right now on justin.tv/fantasy top 5.
You can Twitter us at Fantasy Top 5.
We also have a Facebook, which is facebook.com/fantasy top 5, and a Tumblr as well, which is fantasytop5.tumblr.com. All of these are with the 5 spelled out, F-I-V-E. Write into any of those, and we will answer your questions. And we actually do the live show so that we can answer your questions live on air, which we have a lot of really good questions this week.
Yeah, we've gotten a decent amount. We also
we've answered a lot of questions. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's been a lot of really good questions, and that's the thing is it's one of those times where it's one of those seasons where after 2 weeks, people are asking, like legitimately asking, should I try to trade Tom Brady? Should I get rid of
Wes Welker?
Should I get rid of Chris Johnson? Which maybe not a bad decision, but that's me jumping to conclusions too. I feel like people are just all over the place right now. So
that's why
I don't know. So we'll hopefully help you out by answering your questions on all those people.
You just never know. But yeah, so let's get started. We Fantasy Top 5. We do fantasy football. This is the news. I think the number one news story coming out the gate is Aaron Hernandez with that high ankle sprain. You had him as your number 2 tight end, and he has looked really good so far this year, even though Tom Brady hasn't, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, he could be out up to 6 weeks. Those high ankle sprains are pretty bad. Nothing's
and that's the
broken,
thing.
But they just take so long to heal.
Yeah, if he gets any kind of setback too, that 6 weeks could turn into 8 weeks, and then who knows? And yeah, I don't know. It sucks because it's one of those ones where if you watch the play, if you saw the play yesterday, he went down, and as soon as he had the guy roll on his ankle there, he immediately went down and grabbed it. Like it wasn't like I try to get back up and I noticed there's something wrong. He knew there was something wrong right off, so not a good sign.
Yeah, and so we'll talk about a tight end or two that you can pick up later in the show. So if that happened to you, we feel bad for you. Number 2 is the Rams running back Steven Jackson, which was kind of depressing because I thought he was going to have a really good game. Only had 5 points. Threw the ball down really hard, got a penalty. Didn't play the rest of the game, but apparently it was because he had a groin injury.
Yeah, we both thought he was benched.
Yeah, and I kept being like, come back in, although the backup was absolutely killing it, which is weird because I did not think that this Richardson guy was the actual backup. I thought it was going to be Pede, which is who they had drafted.
But Richardson
round.
Looked good.
Yeah, he did. He was quick, still had some power. So definitely keep an eye on the groin injury. And we'll keep you guys updated on all these and if anything changes. Number 3, there's a lot of injuries in the news today.
There always is.
Blaine Gabbert exits with a hamstring injury. He left in the 4th, but I read that he was actually injured in the first half, which makes sense because he played awful.
Yeah,
he did not do well, and I think everyone else on that team, Mercedes Lewis and a bunch of other players, suffered as well. Just did not look good. Blackmon didn't have a very good game. So I think a lot of people were really upset about that because the first week the Jaguars looked incredible, and then they come out and look terrible the second week.
Yeah.
So.
And from what I've heard, he's expecting to play next week. So hopefully they can get back on track. But it's hard to say. Like Gabbert, I had him as a sleeper.
Yeah,
he had a solid first week. And that's the thing is being really high on Blaine Gabbert, it's still Blaine Gabbert. Like I think he looks a lot better this year, but I don't think I was never saying he's going to be top 10 or anything. But I think he's one of those guys that he should still definitely have a decent season. I think he'll have a few games like this where he'll just play bad, like he's still getting in the swing of things.
Yeah, it's only his second year.
But yeah, so
He still has a lot to learn. The fourth news story is the Giants. That was crazy because they did not look very good starting out the game, and then in the fourth quarter scored 25 points, which is
insane.
crazy.
Yeah.
And Eli Manning, who started out not doing very well, which I was really happy because I was playing against him. Actually, Lane over here has him, and I thought I was going to do pretty well. And then all of a sudden the fourth quarter comes, and Lane just crushed me. 510 yards from Eli Manning, and just went crazy in the fourth quarter to end up winning.
Yeah, and he's the
that
only
game.
guy who does that. Like, he's Eli Manning. He's like, I'm going to throw 3 interceptions in the first half, and then out of nowhere, I'm going to throw 3 touchdowns, and then I'm going to throw for over 500 yards. Like, he's Eli Manning. He's the best quarterback in the league, in my opinion, with coming back in the fourth quarter. Like, and don't get me wrong, he puts himself in a lot of those positions. I actually kind of think it's a strategy. So he's down, and he's like, all right, look, Cruz, Knicks, let's do this. Let's get some touchdowns now, and let's make it look like we had this hard thing to get over, but really we were fine the whole time.
Which that's how Peyton is as well, and that's one reason that he's one of my favorite quarterbacks in the league is the same thing. Those fourth quarter comebacks are just crazy. And then the Giants are kind of that team as well. I mean, if anyone watched them last year, they kind of snuck in to the playoffs, and
they never
ended
stop.
up.
They just don't give up.
It's crazy. But definitely a fun team to watch. And number 5, Ahmad Bradshaw, another injury, gets taken to the Giants locker room for x-rays on his neck, which is going to be kind of rough if he is out, because I don't know if there's a legitimate backup behind him. Well, we're not really sure who it's going to be. We initially thought it would be David Wilson, who didn't look that good. And then who did they have come in after, who ended up getting most of the carries? But either way, yeah, it's kind of hard. So definitely keep an eye on that because he looked really good. And now we kind of need to figure out who we think the backup's going to be.
They had Andre Brown come in, and Andre Brown looked good, but he didn't look like great. And that's the thing is Ahmad Bradshaw, this has kind of always been his MO. He does really great, but then he gets injured. And it's never been, I don't think it's been his neck before, but I don't know. Hopefully he can come back. Like, I had him on my team, and I had Hernandez on that same team. So that team is weirdly looking to win still, because I was actually playing my little brother, and he had Aaron Rodgers, who did way less than he should do, and he had Marshall, who did almost nothing as well. But it'll be interesting to see how that works out there in New York with the Giants and their running situation.
Yeah, it is. And then Scott, was that the other guy that they had?
Yeah, he played a little bit.
So it's kind of hard to say who's going to actually back him up. Everyone, I think, thought it was going to be Wilson until he came out and had that fumble and all that. So definitely keep an eye on that if you want to pick up a handcuff for Bradshaw if he's going to be out. So, yeah, there's the top 5 news.
All right, awesome. All right, we're going to jump over to my top 5 surprises and disappointments right now.
Which I love these.
Yeah, and my number 1 surprise of the weekend was Brandon Weeden. Came out against Cincinnati, who, as far as I think everyone's concerned, they just assume they had a good defense. And maybe they don't. Maybe Brandon Weeden and Joe Flacco, who I would never pick either one of those two up initially in fantasy, are better quarterbacks than I thought. But they just came out, and both of them owned them. The Ravens did great on them last week. And then Weeden this week had 322 yards and 2 touchdowns, which is insane considering how bad he did in his first game. So he's my number 1 surprise.
I think that makes sense. Because I did not expect him to be anything this year, and I didn't even expect him to have a good game, to be honest. But
yeah, and the Browns, hopefully the Browns keep it up, because I don't love the Browns by any means, but I think football is football. It's just better. The more competitive teams you have out there, the better it's going to be. And the Browns have kept up with the Eagles in the first game of the season.
Mhm.
And then they did well against Cincinnati and brought it down to the last quarter, the last few minutes even yesterday against the Bengals. So I think the Browns might end up winning 4 to 6 games, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a lot compared to where I think everyone had them at the beginning of the season. And then let's move over to the number 2 surprise of the week, which was the Green Bay defense. We talked about this a little bit, but they went crazy on Thursday.
Yeah, and I think we both talked about how we weren't incredibly high on them. They didn't really look really great last year, and didn't really look that great in the first game either. And so we weren't necessarily down on them, but we weren't as high on them as the Green Bay defense should be. And then they come out and have this, and it's like, well, okay, maybe we were wrong.
Yeah, they had 7 sacks, 4 interceptions. And what I liked is Clay Matthews looks like he might be back. Because last year, he didn't have a bad defensive year, I wouldn't say, but he had a bad star defensive player year. Like, he didn't get all the sacks like he's been getting. He's the league leader in sacks right now with 6 sacks. And
Well, how many did he have last year?
awesome.
They said,
He had 6 total last year, so he's already reached his
he's
total
already
from
had
last
it.
year. And then
which is huge. That's a
Yeah.
big part of their defense was Clay Matthews and all the sacks, because that, like we saw in that game, it's really hard to be a good quarterback when you're getting sacked all the time.
yeah, and I like their attitude. They're aggressive. They had 4 interceptions. 3 of those were ridiculously athletic plays. 2 of those were so close to not being interceptions that they had to be reviewed because Green Bay's defense will go out there and make those. And then I liked Woodson's comment after the game where he said, I guess Cutler before the game said good luck to the Green Bay's defense, and he said, yeah, I understand Cutler is excited about his new weapons he has, but Jay's still Jay. We just have to stay in position, and he'll get us the ball. And that's the thing is Jay Cutler and Woodson were jawing at each other at the end of the game. Like, they were just yelling back and forth. And Woodson is that guy. Like, Woodson can talk some shit. He always has been able to, and he has the talent to do it. So I think it's great. Like, a good Green Bay defense is great to watch.
Yeah, it is.
And then if we move to my third surprise of the week, we're going to move over to, and this was a huge surprise to me, not like being negative about it, like they did great, but I just wasn't expecting it to blow up like this. I thought it'd take them a little bit longer to get going. But we have the Rams offense, and they just looked great against the Redskins yesterday. Bradford,
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, Bradford threw for 310 yards. He had 3 touchdowns, only 1 interception. And then Jackson, who we talked about, had that hamstring issue, but Darrell Richardson was like, it's okay. You rest it out. I'll take care of this. And he had 83 yards. And that's the key, I think. Like, Bradford's the type of quarterback, he can go deep, but he doesn't love to go deep.
Mm-hmm.
And a good running game helps a quarterback like that out. A good running game helps any quarterback out, but he's not Rodgers or Matt Stafford who can work with absolutely no running game. Like, he needs a running game. So I think the fact that Richardson looks like he's going to go in there and be able to fill in if Steven Jackson needs a breather or is hurt, I think that's big for them.
Yeah, which they didn't have last year.
Yeah,
They
didn't.
thought they were going to. They picked up a bunch of people in the offseason.
And they all did awful. I don't know
Yeah.
what that was. But we had Brandon Gibson, who got 53 yards and 1 touchdown.
Which is looking really good.
Yeah,
Both games.
he scored a touchdown in both games. Yeah, and then a guy who's not a big surprise to me and Eric. Like, it's kind of been, we've been waiting on him. He's a Wes Welker type, and that's Amendola.
And I was so glad, too, because we answered a lot of questions this week. And anyone who asked us about Amendola, which there were a lot of Amendola questions. I think a lot of people are kind of wondering about him, and we were really high on him, and to see that was like, yes.
Yeah, he had 15
We did it.
receptions, 160 yards, and 1 touchdown. And that's the thing is, Amendola is one of those guys that I would try to get if I was in a PPR league for sure, because Bradford's always going to throw 7 to 10 balls his way every game that Amendola is healthy. So, and he might not always catch 15 balls, but I think he'll always catch 5. And so, yeah, the Rams offense looked great, and I really hope they can keep it up because I've always been big on Bradford. I've always been big on Amendola, And like I said, I think them having 2 legitimate running backs there would be awesome. So
Yeah, and
it's
I hope
good.
so too, because they have a Thursday night game coming up soon. And last time they had the big game. They looked awful, so it would be nice.
And then my 4th surprise of the week, which I probably shouldn't have put as a surprise, but I think a lot of people were doing the whole Cam Newton's in a sophomore slump, da-da-da-da-da.
I wasn't.
And his
That was
sophomore...
another one. I got a lot of
Yeah.
questions about Cam Newton as well, and I said, play him.
Yeah.
I think he's going to bounce back. It's the Saints.
And he had his sophomore slump ended after 1 game. Like, he came back, he had 253 yards passing. He only threw 1 interception, but he got back to Cam Newton-style football. He ran for 71 yards.
Ran in a touchdown.
And, yeah, he got a touchdown. And he got to do his Cam Newton, where he's pulling off his jersey to show the Superman. So I like that. I like to see that he's back with that. And there's not a whole lot to talk about there. Like, it's Cam Newton.
I'm not too worried.
Yeah, I think he'll do fine.
I drafted him in my league, and I was actually a little bit questionable, but other people shouldn't be.
All right, and then the number 5 surprise of the week, Reggie Bush, who went to town against my Raiders. He had 172
My
yards
gosh.
rushing, 2 touchdowns, 25 yards receiving. And then last week, he didn't have as good a game, but he had 69 yards rushing and 46 yards receiving, which still added up to being over 100 yards in his first game against the Texans, which the Texans are a good defense.
Yeah, they are.
And then he had 197 yards against the Raiders. And the Raiders didn't look bad the first week of the season against the Chargers, which the Chargers don't have Ryan Matthews, but look at what the Chargers did yesterday. So I think the Raiders defense, I was high on them for 1 week, and now I'm super low on them again.
Yeah, Reggie Bush was. That's another one that Lane back here had against me. That, gosh, he had like 3 players with 30 points. Can't really do anything against that.
Yeah. And then I'm going to jump over to the disappointments of the week. Number 1, Tom Brady. This is 2nd week in a row outside the top 10 of fantasy quarterbacks. And it's one of those things where it's like, really? I finally find Tom Brady's kryptonite, which is me picking him up on the league. Every year for like the last 3 years, I'm like, Tom Brady's gonna have a decline this year, and he's always done fine. And then I pick him up in a fantasy league, and he's like, I'm gonna go ahead and try to get a running game going here. I'm gonna forget how to throw touchdown passes. So
I had him last year, and I can say I was quite pleased.
yeah, so it's one of those things where it's bittersweet because I don't like Tom Brady. I think he's overrated, but I finally am like, he might be overrated, but he has so much talent on that team that he's going to throw touchdown passes, and he's proven me wrong. And so it's kind of nice, but at the same time, I'm super competitive, so I don't like not getting those points every week. And then the number 2 on my disappointments list is a guy that it hurts my heart to say this, but it's Darren McFadden.
That was sad.
2 weeks into the season now, he has 54 rushing yards. That's not each week. That's combined, 54 rushing yards, 105 receiving yards, and 0 touchdowns this far. And he has a whopping 15.9 fantasy points in the combined for the first 2 weeks. And he's just...
Yeah, I think we're going to get a lot of questions about whether people should start him. And I have him. You have him.
Yep.
And how do you feel? I feel like I'm going to start him.
I have to give him at least
Because
a
I
couple
have
more
to.
weeks.
But, man, it's going to definitely be hard to do.
Yeah, and that's the thing, too, is I think the biggest problem with that is whenever McFadden's on the field, it's pretty obvious who the Raiders are going to for the most part.
That's the thing. I think the Raiders need to just, it doesn't seem like it just doesn't seem like they're clicking at all. And so it's really hard to get anything going for any player when your offense and pretty much defense, mainly the offense, though, is just not clicking. They don't seem to be working together. There seems to be a lot of problems going on, and so I think that's where a lot of it's coming. So hopefully they can figure everything out under their new coach and everything else.
Yeah, and I think they'll progressively get better. Like
I do too.
Palmer looked solid in the last game. He didn't get
Yeah.
he didn't get touchdowns, but
He did look a lot better.
He looked a lot better, yeah. And then my 3rd disappointment of the week is the Saints, who start the season at 0-2, which is just insane to me. And that's the thing is I don't know what to blame it on. because I watched their games and I don't think they look bad. Jimmy Graham still looks good.
Mm-hmm.
Breeze is still running around and doing all he can to make plays. Their defense looks kind of like crap, but a quick secret: last year their defense wasn't great.
That's
Like
true.
people put up points against them. I don't know. It's just the Saints. I think they'll bounce back, but it's just surprising to see that. It's kind of disappointing, I guess, basically, to see them at 0-2 to start the season.
I don't know. I mean, I was pretty down on them just because of the crazy offseason that they had. So I think there's a lot of, I don't know. I mean, Vilma's out for a while. He got put on the PUP list, and he's apparently meeting with Goodell or something. And so I don't know. I think it's really hard. You lose your coach. And to have that kind of thing go on. I was initially down on them until I realized they were the Saints, and now I'm actually going to go back to what I initially thought.
Yeah, and then number 4, I'm just going to kind of breeze through because we already talked about it for the first 5 minutes of the podcast, and that's the Bears' offense. Like, they just didn't click last game. But like I said, like we went over all of it. I think they'll be fine. I think Green Bay just had their number.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, so we're going to move to number 5 on the disappointments, and that is Cowboys offense, who looked great against the Giants last week, and then they come out and they only score 1 touchdown, and that's to Miles Austin, who Miles Austin looked pretty good, and then, but for the rest of them they didn't do great. Murray only had 44 yards. Bryant only had 1 catch for he had a couple catches, but he only got 17 yards. And Ogletree, who everyone was probably stoked on, I kind of wasn't expecting him to do that great. But he had 1 catch for 26 yards.
Yeah, that's brutal.
And on the
So
plus
a lot of
side,
people were excited to play a lot of these players too after the week 1 they had against the Giants. But
yeah, I was. I have Miles Austin in 1 league, and I have Bryant in 1 league. And then on the plus side, Witten had a few catches, and he's looking like he's getting back on track. And I think maybe not even next week, but I think week 4, week 5, he'll be back to the Witten he's always been, and I think they'll look better from there. But for right now, it's a disappointment to see him play that bad.
yeah, crazy. A lot of disappointments there, and awesome surprises. All right, on to the next segment here, which is one of my favorites. Pickups, put downs, and watchovers. What this is people you should pick up off the waiver wire, players that you should put down, meaning take them off of your team, and watchovers. So these are players that don't quite pick up yet. You can if you want, if you feel like you should, but they're kind of more just watch over them. You know, they may move up in the pickups, they may move out, but I just don't feel confident enough to put them in the pickups yet. Number 1, Danny Amendola, which is awesome because I already have him in 1 league. I should have picked him up in both. I kind of decided to pick up some other players, but he's 46% owned. Like Sean said earlier with those crazy stats, he definitely had an incredible game. Looked really good. It's a person that Bradford's going to go to. And yeah, definitely if you can get him, use a waiver wire pick and pick him up. Number 2, Brandon LaFell, who we actually had quite a few questions about him as well. And I wasn't quite sure. I didn't really think that he was going to do a whole lot. And it ended up that he did. He looked really good. He was getting thrown to a lot. Yeah, Cam Newton had a really good game. So, and they're going to need a second receiver.
Yeah,
It looks like LaFell is going to be the guy behind Steve Smith.
Yeah, especially if Smith keeps getting banged up. And LaFell's already had a touchdown, and he's already caught like 9 passes for 155 yards. So I definitely think I was the same as you. I wasn't super high on him.
Yeah, I wasn't either.
I think he's
Which we were getting questions about him, so
people
apparently people knew more than we did. He's 32% owned, so you could probably definitely get him. My number 3 pickup is Ben Tate. That's the thing, is he's behind Arian Foster, which normally if you're behind Arian Foster, you probably don't want to be owned. But the guy is just so good. It is hard to deny his talent. It's kind of like the Michael Bush Forte thing. But he was incredible all last year. He's definitely a starter. Same with Michael Bush. Either of those guys could definitely be starters in this league. He's 65% owned, so he's a little bit more owned than most. But if you need a running back after Forte and everything else, definitely pick him up. My number 4 is Martellus Bennett, 31% owned. He was actually in my watchovers last week, so I moved him up. Eli Manning went crazy, and he looks to be their starting tight end.
And he dropped a couple passes, but that's kind of his thing, is he drops passes occasionally. But he has also caught a touchdown in both games.
Yeah, he's
So
really,
Hernandez owners,
yes.
pick him up.
And my number 5, which you were actually really high on, and I wasn't. I did not think he was going to have a good year. Lane actually got him because he's a Bucs fan. Mike Williams on the Bucs. He's 62% owned, so he's a little bit up there, kind of like Ben Tate. But I think you can probably still get him. I think he's still flying under the radar a little bit. But yeah, you were definitely right with V-Jack taking away a lot of the coverage.
And I think
And
V-Jack
Mike
is...
Williams getting open.
I think
and that
V-Jack
touchdown
has helped
catch.
them. Yeah, it was insane.
That was amazing.
Like up over a guy, like just
it
brings
was
it in.
so
Like,
epic.
yeah.
It didn't even look hard.
And I actually love Mike Williams, so I think it was kind
Yeah,
of
I
a
was
homer
really
pick
down
when I
on
picked
him.
him in the beginning, but
And
it's
Sean
kind of
was
working
not.
out, so it's good.
But yeah, those are the pickups. We'll post all this stuff on our website as well, fantasytop5.com, spelled out. So we'll post all these. So if you know, rather than going back and listening to the podcast again and trying to figure out what we are, just go onto the website and you can actually look at them there. The put downs, number 1, I feel like I had to do it. I felt like I didn't want to. I felt like I questioned myself,
I feel like no one will blame you, but go on.
but I did it. I'm not looking back. I'm not. I could change it right now. I don't even have to say it. It's not posted anywhere, but I'm going to do it. Chris Johnson, 100% owned. Drop him.
Yeah.
Awful.
At least if you have enough room on your bench, at least bench him. Like that dude.
Don't play him. Do not play him. If you want to wait one more week, that'll make me feel better, because if he has an awesome game, I'm going to be down on myself. So if you want to bench him one more week, you can. But if you need to pick someone else up, I definitely would. I don't know if there are really any running backs that really stood out that you should go grab. I think we had Alfred Morris, who did look amazing, and hopefully people picked him up.
If for some reason people
Stephen
waited
Ridley.
on CJ Spiller, I don't know why they would have. I guess. Well, actually, I do, because me and Eric were both like, "Yeah, that was a one-time
Yeah.
thing," and then he went insane again.
I
Like
still forget about that. I just do not think that he's that good. But yeah,
I actually
Fred
heard
Jackson's still out.
since he started playing, since Fred Jackson got hurt last year, there's only one guy with him starting games. There's only one guy who's started the same games as him who's had more fantasy points, and that's Calvin Johnson.
Wow.
Like CJ Spiller, I don't know how he does it, because I look at him and I'm like, really?
Yeah.
And he's just insane.
So if you can, how owned is CJ Spiller? You should look that up. Number 3, I put him in my put downs last week, but he's still really high. D'Angelo Williams. The guy is just awful. And Stewart actually looked really good. I'm pretty down on all the Carolina running backs, but Stewart is actually at least ownable. D'Angelo Williams is not. He is absolutely awful. He had a goal line carry that looked like he was going to get in, and he somehow still didn't. And I was like, and I immediately was like, gosh, this guy's so awful. 78%, definitely drop him. 72, I actually had this in my put downs last week as well. Beanie Wells. The guy's not going to do anything. He's 72% owned. I hope all these drop. And number 5 is Roy Halou, 44%. He's not really that high owned, but he's definitely not going to be the guy.
Spiller's at 93% owned
Yeah,
right now.
that's pretty high. I kind of assumed he would be. He's still a guy that everyone owns. People pick him up, but that's crazy.
Well, he's already got nearly 300 yards rushing this season. So
He's the leader, isn't he?
I think so. Yeah, he is
So
the leader.
crazy.
He's just insane.
So crazy. And then some guys to watch over. Donnie Avery, 3% owned. Actually traded from the Rams to the Colts. And it looks like Luck is looking for him a lot. And he's doing really well, which, like Sean told me yesterday, it's so frustrating when you have a guy on your team that just is awful. drops passes, doesn't do anything, and then gets traded and immediately starts doing awesome and has
It's like when
value.
Randy Moss left the Raiders, but only not as bad, probably. But
Yeah, it's
yeah.
Sonny Avery's not quite as bad as Randy Moss.
Yeah.
Number 2, Brandon Gibson, another Rams guy. It's kind of nice being able to put all these Rams guys in here. 3% owned, has looked awesome. I actually probably should have had him number 1. I think I did. Why did I change that? That way I have my Rams guys all number 1. But 3% owned, and definitely looks like he's getting a lot of looks from Bradford. He's had a touchdown in both games, right?
Yep.
And definitely looks like he may be the target. Amendola will be that underneath guy, and Gibson looks like he may be the route wide receiver on there. Number 3 is Greg Little, 48% owned, like we were talking about earlier with the Browns. I think he's really their only wide receiver that's even worth looking at. He's 48% owned, so he's almost half. But it looks like he actually may get some looks if Whedon
If
actually
Whedon
ends
plays
up.
like he did yesterday. It's
So
worth
definitely
looking at.
watch over and just kind of see if he has another good week in week 3, you may want to pick him up. Number 4 is Dante Rosario. He's 1% owned. I think Gates will be back. I don't think you'll want to pick him up, but at the same time, if Gates gets hurt, main reason I put him in here is Gates gets hurt a lot anymore.
Yeah.
And so I kind of put him in here as kind of a don't pick him up. But if Gates is out again, I don't think he will be. And if Gates gets injured, it did look like Rivers was looking for him a lot.
He did get 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, he did. And number 5, Dennis Pitta, 28% owned. Flacco was definitely looking for him.
Where the hell is Ed Dixon? Like, really?
I don't know.
Like, I thought Ed Dixon would be, like, not to cut you off, but I've literally, I'm like, I don't want to mention him as a sleeper because he kind of did okay last year, but he's not high, but Ed Dixon has got to be better this year, and then he's not even there, it seems like. It's all
I like Pitta, though. He's from Utah.
Yeah, and Flacco is going to him a lot,
Yeah.
like you said.
Which is nice because they need a tight end. And last year it was really split between the two of them. I think it was kind of wondering who's going to come out of there, Dixon or Pitta. And so far it looks to be Pitta. So he's 28% owned. Definitely keep an eye on him. Watch over him. And
I would even say, not to interfere with your thing, but I would almost say if you're a Hernandez owner, maybe even go pick him up now. He's looked solid the first 2 weeks.
that's the thing with these watchovers is you can. Dante Rosario, you might want to. He's 1% owned.
Yeah, if Gates,
and I think
if
Gates
Gates
will be
healthy,
back. But
he'll
if Gates
play.
isn't back, I would definitely play him. They use their tight end a lot in San Diego, which is why Gates does so well. And even when Gates was out last year, who was their backup last year?
I don't even remember.
I don't remember either, but he had a few really good games, and Rivers likes his tight end a lot. So if Gates is out at any time during the year, I would definitely pick him up and play him. All right.
And then I'm just going to kind of quickly give you the top 5 in each position, and so we can get to your questions really quick. But I also, with these top 5, if any of these change from tonight's game, I'll update it, and it'll be on the website. Either tonight or tomorrow sometime. And the top 5 quarterbacks, Robert Griffin III.
How much money points did he end up with? Because
He
I
ended
told
up with
someone to play
31.
him. I told someone to play him over Vic, and I was like, yeah. But then, yeah, I mean, he looked awesome. I mean, the
Yeah.
Rams really did play well because it's not like Washington looked bad.
And he is Vic. He's Vic from
He
a couple of
runs
years
so
ago.
much.
He had 82 rushing yards. He only threw one touchdown pass, and he threw an interception, so that kind of almost cancels it out. It's that he ran in 2 touchdowns.
And
too.
the Rams just kept destroying him.
Yeah.
I kept thinking, oh my gosh, RG3 is going to get injured.
Yeah.
They just kept hitting him hard every time he ran the ball.
But he's going to get that. He's going to learn the way Vic learned, I feel like. He's going to eventually get hurt, and he's going to try to switch his game, and then you're never going to know if you can start him like Vic. But yeah, RG3 got 31 points. Eli Manning, with his 510 yards, got 29 points. Cam
I
Newton.
thought Eli would have been higher.
Yeah, well,
I
he
thought he
threw
would've
those
been
3
number 1.
interceptions as well.
Yeah, he looked so bad for 3 whole quarters. It's kind of hard to come back and be the number 1 scorer when you only play 1 quarter.
Yep. And then we got Cam Newton with 26 points.
Nice.
And Michael Vick, like I said, like he looked off for the first part of the game.
He does every game.
But
And this
then
is
he
what I
came
told
back.
someone. Someone asked me Vic or Dalton. And you actually gave me crap for it. But I told him Vic. I said, it's close, and, Vic is playing the Baltimore Ravens and Dalton's playing the Browns. But I would go with Vic. He always seems to pull it out. And they actually ended up around the same
Yeah, they're only like a 2-point difference.
still.
So it's kind of a wash. But and then 5, Eric will love this one. Sam Bradford with 24 points.
Bradford, number 5.
Killing it. All right, and then now we're going to move to
Watch
our...
over him as well. I have him. I don't dare play him, but he's nice on my bench.
If he can go back to where he was his rookie season, yeah, he's
He's a
good guy to
player.
have.
Yeah, and I did. His rookie season, I played him for my bye week, and a few times I kind of wish I had played him. But then last year he was awful.
All right, and then in the running back position, we got Reggie Bush, who we already talked about, kind of killed it, got 31 points. C.J. Spiller, who we also kind of talked about, 29 points. Trent Richardson looked a lot better, and he caught He had a rushing touchdown, and he also caught a touchdown. So he had a way better second game.
Yeah, which I still
Yeah.
don't know about him because I have him in one league, and I don't dare start him. But I'm also not going to get rid of him either.
Yeah, because
So
he's
maybe
got potential. And then, he got 26 points. And then here's the crazy thing. The last two are from the same team. We kind of went over it earlier. We got Ben Tate and Arian Foster.
He
in
ended
that
up
order.
higher.
Yeah, Ben Tate was higher than Arian Foster by a point. He
So
got
crazy.
21.7, and Foster got 20.7.
That's what I'm saying is
It's
if
just crazy.
you can get him, gosh, it's so crazy to think that any running back behind it, he was only 65% owned. But yeah, he scored more points than Arian Foster. And as a running back too, I think you're safe. As a flex, you can't get any better. I mean, if you have Ben Tate as your flex, I don't know. You're
Can't
good.
get much better.
You can't get much better. I
Like
couldn't
some
come up with a second
some
thing to say
weeks
there.
he won't do great, but he gets touchdowns, and he does well. So I don't feel like he's definitely good to have. And Arian
Top 5
Foster,
flex.
yeah, and Arian Foster is known for getting nicked up a little bit. So I think, like Eric said, he's a good guy to have on your bench or in your flex. And all right, we were going to move over to wide receivers, and just something to prove that if your quarterback throws for 510 yards, you'll get a lot of yards, because the number 1 and number 2 receiver are from the Giants. We got Hakeem Nicks is number 1 with 25 points. Victor Cruz is number 2 with 23 points.
Yeah, Lane had Victor Cruz as well.
Yep. Dwayne
That
Bowe.
bastard.
Dwayne Bowe is number 3 with 22 points. And then
Dwayne Bowe?
Yep. He got 2 touchdowns, 100 yards. Yeah.
Where?
He was at Buffalo, I believe.
Oh, yeah. That's what I was wondering, is where he was at when he did this. Because I don't remember seeing it. Was it on TV? Did he do that on TV? Or
I was watching Red Zone, and he was on there, but only a little bit.
Yeah, I don't. Crazy.
Yep. Most of the highlights that were on Red Zone were of C.J. Spiller
That's true.
for that
That's a
game
lot of
anyways.
him.
All right, and then number 4, we have Eric's boy, Danny Amendola, 21 points. And then number
Nice.
5, we have V-Jack with 18
Nice.
points.
Which is good because I'm really high on V-Jack this year, and
I would love to see him get consistent, because he's never been consistent. He'll have a game like today, and then he'll have a game like he had the first game.
it's true.
So if he could get consistent, that'd be great. And then we're moving over to tight ends. Our number 1 tight end is Rosario, which another thing with Phillip Rivers and the San Diego team, they know how to use tight ends, and they know how to use them in the red zone, because he caught 3 touchdowns, like we said, but he only had 48 yards total. So they just, in the red zone, they're going to go to their tight end.
Mm-hmm.
And then number 2, we have Vernon Davis, who had 19 points. And then
He looked good.
Brent Selleck was number 3, who had 15 points, and that was with no touchdowns. He caught 157 yards.
That's so crazy, Vic. Yeah, because we
He
were talking
leaped
about that.
He
we,
leaped over Reed.
we talked about that in one of our first podcasts and one of the preseason ones, that Vic needs to learn how to use him because he's a good tight end, and if you learn how to use your tight end, you can be a really good quarterback. And he's finally doing it. I'm glad he listened to us.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
I mean-
I know Vic listens to the podcast.
I know he does too, and it's nice to see that he actually took our advice to heart. Like
Yeah.
most people should.
Yeah, all people should. But and then number 4 we got Gronk, who got 13 points, and then number 5, which by the way, Gronk got 13 points as soon as Hernandez went out. So he's probably moved back up to probably number 2 if Hernandez is going to stay injured.
That's why I had him number 1.
Yeah, I still think
Wow.
Jimmy Graham's better. He wasn't top 5 this week, but I still think he's better. But and then we have Bennett from the Giants who had 13 points, and I
Yeah,
think
if you-
Bennett. Yeah, if you can get him, especially if you own Hernandez.
Yep, he is going to be good.
And then we're gonna go through our kickers really quick. Which kickers we have? Gostkowski, who missed the game-winning kick for New England,
Ooh.
and Arizona won that
Yeah,
game.
it looked really good every kick before that,
Yep.
but
And-
choked.
He reminded me a lot of Cundiff that game, and he. So it's good that New England got a taste of their own medicine in a way. It's kind of interesting. And then, but he had 17 points. Tucker and Hansen were both tied with 16 points, and then
Hansen looks good, but Tucker looks really good. I can see why they got rid of Cundiff and why they waited a while to get rid of him. They didn't immediately get rid of him right away, and they're like, "We've been wanting to do it." And thank you, Tucker, for being so good and allowing us to finally get rid of Cundiff.
yeah, and then sorry, number 4 we have Tynes, Lawrence Tynes, and
Same
then
thing with the Giants.
Yep. If you score a lot of points, you get a lot of points from your kicker. And then tied for number 5, we have Adam Vinatieri with 14 and Mason Crosby also with 14.
Nice. Where
So
was Akers at?
Akers where was Akers? He was down at number, let's see. $14, which is kind
Wow.
of weird. But they scored touchdowns this game, so they didn't end up kicking as many field goals.
Yeah, I thought he'd be in the top 5. Although kickers are so hard, like we've talked about.
Yeah, they're crazy. And then we'll just quickly go through the defense. All right, number 1 defense, like we've talked about kind of the whole podcast, was Green Bay. And this helps out. I don't think in any league Green Bay wasn't picked early when it came to defenses.
Yeah.
So it's not someone you can pick up, but they looked solid. Buffalo looked solid at 18 points, but Kansas City's looked like a damn joke, really.
Yeah, they have. That's why I was surprised about Bo.
Yeah. Well, that was all like in garbage time, I feel like. Like Buffalo just killed them all game, and then they scored a little bit at the end. Defense I want to talk about, which also, if your league was smart, they should have been picked up, which is Seattle. Seattle looked awesome. And I've been high on them. Like they've always had a good defense. It's the offense that's kind of held them back, and now they're doing pretty good. And then Washington's defense, which is weird, is number 4 at 13 points, even with all the scoring St. Louis did.
Yeah.
And then Carolina's defense was number 5.
So they looked incredible, too. That
Yeah,
was so crazy.
They actually, it looked like they hurt Breeze. I haven't heard anything about it, but he played through it because it was kind of early in the game. And I think Breeze is one of those guys that if he can get up and walk, he can get up and play. Like, that's kind of his thing.
But Carolina definitely shaked him
Yep.
a lot.
All right, and that's our top 5 from every position. Now we're going to spend our last 15 minutes or so answering questions for you.
All right. Let's see. Let's see if anyone in the chat has any. If not, yeah, we got a lot of questions this week. So
All right, I'll go ahead and I like this question, so I'm going to go ahead and mention it.
'Kay.
From Colton Lazaro on our Twitter page. He asked at Fantasy Top 5, is Reggie Bush Jesus or no? And I'm going to go ahead and say he's not Jesus just yet, but he's close. If he was playing any other defense other than the Raiders, I'd probably say yeah. But the Raiders defense, they know how to give up, and they do it early. Like if they get on a roll, they'll do well. But for the most part, if they get down, they stay down. And then but Reggie Bush, I'll tell you, he's not Jesus, but he's not Reggie Bush in St. Louis. Not St. Louis, sorry, in New Orleans. So that's the big thing. He's consistent, it looks like, in Miami.
And I always wanted him to come back and actually start playing well again. I feel like that year that the Saints won the Super Bowl, I don't know, I was really excited for him. I really thought he was going to be a really good fantasy player and then just kind of dropped off.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question here from, let's see, Juice Malone. So, my tight end Mercedes Lewis put up a goose egg after a respectable Week 1 performance. I think I'm going to drop him because he's on the Jags and most likely will not get anywhere near his beastly 2010 year. Tight ends I'm looking for are Selleck, Bennett, Chandler, leaning towards Bennett. Jacob Tamme is also a free agent, so I don't have to use my waiver wire to pick him up. I don't think Mercedes Lewis is done, per se. Like we talked about, Gabbert he got injured in the first half. They finally put him out and sat him in the fourth. So I don't necessarily think he's going to be as awful as he is, but I also don't necessarily think that he's the best on this list. I'm really high on Jacob Tamme, and especially if you don't have to use a waiver wire spot, I would definitely pick him up. But like we talked about, Selleck is definitely getting passed to a lot. Bennett, I think, is also a good choice. And Scott Chandler...
Inconsistent.
I mean, he had some really good games last year. When Fitzpatrick is on, they have a really... They work out really well together. But the problem is they're not. And Fitzpatrick, I wouldn't trust him either. But at the same time, yeah, pick up Jacob Tamme. I think he's going to be really good. I'm really high on him, so unless I'm wrong. But if not, yeah, I don't think Mercedes Lewis is going to be that bad. But I think there's better options on the list.
All right, and then let's see. I have a question here. Let me just pull it up. All right, I have, is it time to let go of Justin Blackmon? Just wondering if you think he can bounce back on a mediocre Jags team. And
I was so down on the Jags.
yeah, I actually don't think they're that
It
mediocre.
was one bad game, and maybe it was because Gabbert was hurt. I mean, that's what I honestly think. I think Gabbert got hurt in the first little bit, tried to play through it, and finally they were like, get out of here.
Yeah, but Blackmon hasn't been great either way.
He really hasn't, yeah.
And then it says his available players include Brandon Gibson, Donnie Avery, Andre Brown, and Curley. And what I say is I would go ahead and drop him, especially if you have those players available. He hasn't looked great so far, and I would say pick up either Avery or Gibson. Avery's already got 12 passes, and he's had 148 yards, so they're obviously looking to him a lot, and he's also got a touchdown. And Luck seems to be gaining confidence in him, so I like that. And then Gibson hasn't had as many receptions as Avery, but he has caught a touchdown
either one
pass.
of those could be so good. It's just so hard to know.
Yeah, it's hard to say how consistent either of those will be. Luck's a rookie, and in a lot of ways, Bradford's only in his second year, so he played so little last year.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like the Rams' offense. They do seem like they're on the rise. But Avery or Gibson, I would say either one is a lot safer bet than Blackmon.
Nice. Let's see, I got another question here from the Squelican. It's got an awesome name.
Yeah.
I'm in a 2-quarterback league. I have Matt Ryan, Drew Brees, and Peyton Manning. Pretty epic. Would it be a good idea to trade Peyton for Ryan Matthews? My current running backs are pretty good already, McCoy, Lynch, and Sproles. Yes, they are. On the bench, I'm a little weak, though. I have DeLangelo Williams, and that's it. I could trade Peyton, who I got in the 6th round, which most people did, and Matthews, who was a 2nd-round pick. Would you do the trade and pick up Gabbert or Locker off of waivers? I would say I'm really high on Peyton, and I'm going to stick with that. I think he's going to finish as a top 5 quarterback, and I wouldn't trade him for most people, especially right now, because I think people are still a little bit down on him. So I don't think you're going to get quite the value you could if you got rid of him right now. I also think Ryan Matthews, I just don't trust the guy at all. I think he has talent. I think he has a lot of potential, but I don't think he can stay healthy. And if he does, he could do really well. But at the same time, I think Peyton is way too good for that, even though people aren't seeing it because of where they picked him up. I guess we'll find out tonight in a few minutes. But I think you look good all over. I would definitely get rid of D'Angelo, maybe pick up Ben Tate or someone like that. D'Angelo is definitely droppable. But I would definitely keep, especially in a 2-quarterback league, to have those 3 guys. Man,
Yeah, that's
keep them.
yeah. That
It's
is
hard to
insane.
sit one of those guys. I mean, it's hard to sit.
Which a lot of people were lower on Matt Ryan.
And we'll see. I mean, that's
would
another
be.
one tonight that we'll kind of see. I would definitely sit Matt Ryan, start Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, have Matt Ryan as a backup in case something happens. Your running backs look great, except for D'Angelo.
Yeah, I would get rid of D'Angelo either way.
I would too.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I believe he scored a touchdown in Sunday's game.
Did
But-
he?
Yeah, but it was kind of it's fluky with him. He had all the carries last week and he did nothing. And then this week, he's supposed to be splitting carries with Stewart, and then he does good. Like, he's really fluky. I wouldn't want him on my team at all. And there's a lot of guys out there you can pick up that are a little bit safer.
Yep.
So, yeah, just that's what I would do.
I agree.
All right. And then I also got a question, which is a pretty good one, I think, which is tight end to replace Hernandez. And they said the tight ends they were looking at were Pitta, Gresham, Rudolph, or Fleener, and it's a PPR league. And in this particular case, I would have to go with Pitta all the way. He's already caught 13 passes for 138 yards, which is averaging over 10 yards a catch. And he's also got a touchdown. And if you look at it, that's almost 7 catches, 7 receptions a game. So
It's depressing to have to replace Hernandez with Pitta. Rudolph also looked really good as well. I think I would still stick with Pitta, but Rudolph does look good.
and he was one of my sleepers too.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is about the Vikings. I think it's maybe AP or something. And I don't think they're as bad as people are summing them up as a terrible team. And I really think they're one momentum boost away from being a good team. And I also think they're the hardest thing about being on the Vikings, I would think, is they're in that division where they don't have a chance of making the playoffs really unless hell freezes over.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's who I'd pick up is one of those two. Probably Pitta though.
Did you check out the chat? We got a question here in the chat. I
Okay.
think I better read it. It's from Brandy422. I have a question. I'm a first-time fantasy football player relying a lot on the opinions of my husband. He seems to be giving me terrible advice on my league. How do I know if he's trying to sabotage me or if he's just really bad at fantasy football? I'm going to let you answer this one, Sean.
All right. Well, I'm gonna decline the question, and the reason I'm gonna decline the question is because Brandy422 is actually my wife, and so I've already given her advice, and she obviously seems to be loving it so far. So I don't know. What would you say, Eric?
I would suggest you inform her of how many previous fantasy leagues you've won.
Oh, I have won all fantasy leagues that I've played in, so I guess Lane does have a point there. Here's the thing: is Brandy, my wife Brandy, she's upset with me because Nick's was put as questionable Saturday night, and I was like, okay, maybe you want to try to pick up someone. So she picked up Lance Moore, and I was like, all right, maybe put Lance Moore in case you don't get to it Sunday morning, and you don't want Knicks to get no points. And then I told her really late, it was like 10:50. I was like, all right, you put Knicks in. I'm pretty sure he's going to play. And then he was the number 1 receiver. And for whatever reason, her phone wouldn't let her change it because I know she still had enough time. So she's mad at me because he scored all those points and she didn't get in on any of that action, I guess.
I do like this, and then she also adds, and what would you recommend for other wives in my position? I would say listen to them. I don't think any husband is trying to sabotage their wife. I want my wife to do really well, and even if she ended up beating me, I think, for one, I think the husband does get a little bit of satisfaction based on the fact that they helped their wife win.
Yeah, if your wife wins the league, it's kind of like, what's up, other husbands? Your wife isn't cool. And that's the thing too, is she has a 10 times better team than I do in that league, which is hard because I'm like, I really want to trick her into doing a bad trade with me, but it just would be dishonest.
It's so funny when you guys draft because every time she picks someone, you're like, oh man, and you were helping her as well.
And that's the thing is, your wife did the same thing. She was just like, she would always steal my picks, and I'd be like, last time I help you, because she listens to what we say, and then she gets the picks that we want. And that's the hard thing is when you're us and you're always trying to give out advice, then people know what you're gonna do.
But I would definitely say listen to your husband, unless he's a dirtbag.
Yeah, and then Brandy added to the question at the bottom here, and I just want to go over it really quick because I think this is a good thing, and I've kind of given her some advice on it already. But it says, it basically asks if you should rely on projected stats, and I would say never. Like, maybe not never, but like a lot of times they're going to just project people where they should be, and like where they assume they would be with no potential of doing good. Like, it takes weeks for you to be projected higher. Like, Spiller wasn't projected to get that many points, like hardly any
they're
points
a little
this week,
behind.
and neither was Bush. And so it takes, especially with these people that you're getting off the waiver wire or whatever, I would definitely give it a little bit of time.
But I have seen it be right on, which is quite crazy when it's the exact same as what they projected. And I would say for the most part, it's pretty right. If you have someone who's projected to get 1 point compared to someone projected to get 20, you're going to start the guy that's projected to get 20, but don't, kind of what Sean said. They're a little behind. So yeah, we're at 58 minutes. Do we want to answer one or two more questions? Or are we good?
Let's go ahead and answer one more question, and then we will,
'Kay.
and then we'll jump to, and then we'll say our goodbyes. Kind of watch the game. Let's see.
We can go with this one. Should I drop Wes Welker, or was it just an off game? 2 off games, actually.
All right. Well, you go ahead, and then.
I would say not yet. You don't want to drop Wes Welker. But it's the other thing. It's the same thing with earlier. It's like with McFadden. It's like, you have to play him. Like we've talked about, you have to start your stud players. You can't just sit them on your bench, even when they hurt you over and over again. And I think that's why a lot of people are still having trouble with Chris Johnson.
Yeah.
Because it's still that thing where it's like, but I have to start him. Wes Welker's not quite there yet.
Yeah. I don't think anyone's there yet.
Yeah, I think Chris Johnson's the only guy that's been that kind of player that I can legitimately say, get rid of him. So definitely don't. I think New England will come back. I don't know what their problem is. I haven't quite figured it out yet.
And also, I don't know if anyone noticed, but he did a lot better after Hernandez went out. Like with Hernandez being gone, he's going to get more targets. That's just
And they
how
do
it's
have a
gonna
lot
be.
of targets there, and so it kind of makes sense. I don't think he's going to be the number 1 wide receiver he was last year after they picked up Brandon Lloyd, started really playing the 2 tight ends, and they picked up all the other tight ends and everybody else that they picked up. I knew he wouldn't be the same wide receiver he was last year, but I still thought that Brady would go to him a lot.
And also, Brady's been off with Lloyd, and he's been off with a couple other passes he's been throwing to people. So I think if he plays another game like this one, he's going to end up reverting back to who he's always been and checking down to Welker. So I definitely wouldn't get rid of Welker yet.
All right. That's our podcast. Like we said earlier, we are Fantasy Top 5, fantasytop5.com. Check out our website. It has everything on there. It has our Justin TV link. It has our place where you can subscribe. We're on iTunes. So if you want to subscribe to us on iTunes, or you can put our feed in. We're getting in more and more podcast apps on Android and stuff like that. If not, we have a feed you can put into most of them. So
yeah, and most importantly, send us questions. Like, we want to answer your questions. We want to help you out. That's what we're here for.
And we did really good.
Yeah, so answer, like, put questions anywhere out there, on our Twitter, on our Facebook, on our website, email us, anything. And yeah, I think that's it for right now. So enjoy your Monday night game, and I hope you. We're actually doing a podcast on Thursday this week. So
yes,
before the Thursday night game, an hour before that game starts, we'll be doing a podcast. So we'll
all the
hopefully be able to
stuff that we
answer
didn't-
your questions you have for the upcoming week.
Yeah, and anything we didn't talk about on this one, we're moving over to that one. Starter sit.
Yeah.
You have a new one. What is it?
Yeah, I have bounce backs and drop offs. And then also, basically that one will help you set your lineup for the weekend.
Yeah, we decided
So-
that this one just wasn't enough to help you actually set your lineup for
Yeah.
Sunday. So
And we're getting a lot of questions now, so we want to be able to answer them. So that's why we're doing 2 podcasts. So yeah, we'll let you get to the game. Thanks for watching us. Come watch us on Thursday, an hour before kickoff, which should be 5:30 again. And I'm
5:30
Eric.
Mountain Time.
And this is I said I'm Eric, by the way. I'm Sean.
And I'm
This is-
Eric.
and then Lane. Lane, you want to say anything before we're out?
Nope.
All right.
Peace.
Peace.